Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are continuing to practice subtracting whole numbers, but instead of checking our work using the inverse operation, we're going to check our work by rounding. So we'll round the minimum and the subtrahend and get a estimate for our answer to kind of just double check and see if our answer is close or not, if it makes sense. So let's first get started. How do we check our work for a subtraction equation? What did we do the last few days to help us double check and see how we can check our work? Hopefully in your head, you're like, oh, I can do the inverse operation. So my question for you is some precise words here, true or false. Minute minus subtrahend equals difference. If you think it's true, write true on your whiteboard. If you think it's false, write false. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to just solve our problem. So I want you to watch as I solve my equation. Remember, the variable, I'll even write it in parentheses so we don't forget. Variable is when we're solving for that letter. So our variable in this case is B, okay? So it's not what I think the answer is. It's what I'm trying to solve. So when I take the minimum minus the subtrahend, in order to get that difference, I need to find the answer or the value of B, how much it is. So we learned that when we start subtracting, we always start in the ones place. So let's go ahead and get started. 0 minus 0 is 0. 6 minus 7. Now, remember, we can't change the equation. We can't put the 7 on top and change things around. But I can't have 6 of something and take 7 away. Just doesn't make sense. So we have to borrow. Or I'm going to take one of the hundreds away. 6 minus 1 is 5. And I add that set of 100 to the tens place. So now I truly have 16 tens. And now I can subtract, giving me a difference of 9. I can continue to subtract. Notice that I'm lined up my place value, so it's easier to subtract. 0 minus 8. I can't do it. I can't have 0 of something and take 8 away. So I'm going to borrow, and I'm left with 2. So I believe my answer or my value of B is 20,090. Okay, so if I think that's my answer, 20,090, when I go, oops, sorry, skipping slides. When I go here, I had 20,090. Now I'm going to estimate to double check my work. So I want to make it as easy as possible when I'm rounding. So I think I'm going to round to the nearest 1,000 just to make it an easy number for me and just kind of check and see, is my answer close to my estimate? So if I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000, that means I underline my thousands place. I look to my right and I say my riddle. My riddle is 0 to 4, stay on the floor. 5 to 9, climb the vine. So if I am 6, that means I'm climbing the vine. That number 1 climbs. It gets bigger. All the ones before stay the same. After becomes big, fat, juicy zeros, as my friend Finn likes to say. So this would be 102,000. Now, I'm going to go ahead and round in the thousands place again, but for my subtrahend. So my subtrahend was 81,570. So I underline my thousands place. I look to my right and I say my riddle. 0 to 4, stay on the floor. 5 to 9, climb the vine. Because it's climbing the vine, that number I underlined climbs and gets bigger. The one before stays the same. The one after becomes big, fat, juicy zeros. So I have 82,000. Now I can go ahead and subtract. So 0, 0, 0, 0. Ooh, I can't have 0 and take 8 away, so I have to borrow. This becomes a 10. and I'm left with 2. So obviously my answer over here is not going to be exact because I'm estimating. I'm trying to see if it's close. So I said my answer was 20,090. And when I estimated or just did quick math, I got 20,000. So in my head, I know I'm probably pretty accurate with my answer because I estimated and I got a pretty close answer. 90 is pretty close for estimating. So it's just a way to double check your work. What I want to have you do is I want you to try. So very first thing is I want you to solve for the variable of E. Take a minute, pause your video and solve for this equation. And then we will start estimating it together, okay? So go ahead, pause your video and solve this equation. Now, hopefully when you solve this equation, you quickly realize to find the variable or the value of B right from the get-go. 7 minus 8 you couldn't do. So you had to borrow right from the start. And this became 17. When you had 17 and took 8 away, you were left with a difference of 9. 7 and 6 is 1. 4. I can't have 4 cookies and take 5 away. Again, we have to borrow. 14 minus 5 is 9. 4 minus 0 is 4 with a lovely comma. 0 minus 5. I can't have 0 cookies and take 5 away. So sorry that I always talk about cookies. It's just easier for me. So then I could borrow and then subtract. So I'm saying my value of B is 54,919. One of my strategies to check our work is to estimate. Let's do to the nearest 1,000 just like I did. So if you want to take a second, pause your video and round to the nearest 1,000, okay? And then we'll check back and see if you are accurate or not. So you rounded. I should probably erase all that because it's hard. Oh, maybe I should have wrote that answer down. 54,000. I think it was 919. So I underlined my thousands place. I look to my right. I say my riddle. 0 to 4. Stay on the floor. So this all stays. All the rest become big fat zeros. So over here I have 105,000. Down here, let's do our next one. I'm rounding to the nearest thousands place. So I underline my thousands. I look to the right. 0 to 4, stay on the floor. 5 to 9, climb. So this number climbs. The one before it stays the same. All the rest become big, fat, juicy zeros. Oops. And now I can go ahead and subtract. It's easier for me to subtract with those friendly numbers when there's lots of zeros involved. Definitely easier. Oops, I have to borrow here. And I'm left with a difference of 54,000. And our exact answer over here was 919. Again, friends, I feel like this is pretty close. So that's telling me that I think my answer is correct. Another strategy that we learned yesterday was to do that inverse operation. So you can always do that, okay, to double check your work. So my question for you now is, why should we round to double check our work? Why should we take that time and round? Hopefully you're thinking about, well, Mrs. Andrews, I like to be correct. I like to be accurate. Rounding is an easy way to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So if we can do it easily and quickly, why not to double check and see if we're correct? Now remember, they're not going to be the exact answer because this isn't my exact question. It's rounding. It's finding an estimate, something close to. Now, if I was rounding and I had an answer of like 554,000, somewhere I'd be like, this is what I got, but this is what I estimated. something's not right, and we'd have to go back and double check. So that's the purpose of rounding. It's just another way to double check your work, okay? So what I have here is this student solved this problem for J, and they're saying J equals 232,053. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to round. You can choose. I suggest going to the thousands place, but it's definitely your choice. Round it, like estimate, and see if their answer is based on your knowledge correct. Go ahead, pause your video and check and see using estimation. So hopefully you rounded to the nearest thousand. Again, you could have done the 100,000s if you wanted. It just wouldn't have been as accurate because it would be a more general number. We look to our right, we say our riddle. This would add 1. Over here, I would add 1 again and climb. So I would have approximately 909,000 minus 677,000. So hopefully when we subtracted, couldn't do that, so I'd have to borrow real quick. And you can see that when I estimated rounding to the nearest thousand, it was pretty darn close. It was only 53 away from the exact answer. So it was pretty close, right? Awesome. All right, friends. What I'd like you to do is, I have like a superstar question for you where there's lots of borrowing, borrowing from the bigger place value. So we have 1 million. And now we're going to take away 592,500. For this one, I want you to do it on your own, and you can double check with me. I already put it in my place value chart if that helps you. If you want to take a screenshot of it or do it on your whiteboard, and just email it to me. Email me your answer for the value of T. Again, this is if time question. Don't feel like you have to do it. I love when students are up for the challenge, but don't feel like you have to. Maybe if you want, go do your exit ticket first and then come back and solve this one. It's slide 234 if you want to refer back to it, or if you quickly want to take a screenshot. So now you can go ahead and start your exit ticket on Schoology. Remember, take your time, show your work. We learned 2 strategies of how we can check our work. You could do that inverse operation, or you can estimate to double check. Thanks for working hard, guys.